up, what up, what up? I am an hour late. I am sorry, I had some technical difficulties. So, welcome everybody. I did get a chance to see Orlando Anderson's brother on A&E. So, we are going to talk about that show for a little bit. I got a little list that I'm working on here, and I kind of want to give you guys a pre show rundown of what's going on. Shout out to DJ Gary, Controversy Radio. I see Mike's in the house. Cat Eyes as always. Apocalypse Now, Playa. I see you guys. Sub to Jesse at Controversy Radio. He's a good dude. I see you on here, Mike. So what we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to talk about a couple different things going on with A&E's Who Killed Tupac. I'm a fan of it. I don't want to bag it too hard. I did film a segment for it. I was told it would be episode 4 or 6. They were working on the last few episodes. So I don't want to bag it too hard, but I'm being honest with you. I like the way that it's put together. But some things on it they're just not jiving right. There's Orlando Anderson's brother, there's Tim Brennan, there's Lolita Files, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So one of the videos that we're going to put up before I start talking with RJ is going to be Susan Constantine's response to the body language expert that was used on A&E's show. Susan Constantine was interviewed by RJ Bond and had her own thoughts on it. And that's another good thing. I want to talk about this body language and this expert and what they said. First and foremost, that is not a body language expert. We have this in the interview. We're going to go in more depth, but that is an actress. She had more years and is billed as an actress than a therapist or a behavioral analyst. That is a paid actress. So just to let that cat out of the bag, that is not a real body language analyzer. I'm saying it wrong, but that is bombshell number one. And another thing that she didn't do was she started the segment off by saying, and this could be the editor's fault here, but she started off by saying we're going to start looking for lies. The first thing that you do, according to Susan Constantine, is you need to find a truth. They set no baseline for the truth. So when she started picking apart what she perceived to be lies, you didn't have a baseline of truth to compare it against. And I thought the scene with Orlando Anderson's brother, like I had brought up earlier, was pretty big. I think that was a big deal. One of the things that I think a lot of people might have missed, or a subtlety that they didn't pick up on, was when they asked his brother or his cousin, whoever it was, I can't remember off the top of my head, but when he was asked, what about the rumors that Orlando was going around bragging about what he had done? He said, do you really think with what was facing him, he'd be going around bragging? I mean, who does that? If you really committed murder, if you're really a murderer, a stone cold killer, why would you go around bragging about it? So there's two possibilities here. One of the possibilities is he didn't kill Tupac but knew who did and bragged about it because he knew if it came down to it, he'd never be convicted of, something he didn't do, which seems likely. He could have not bragged at all, or the streets could have been right or simply wrong. But his brother brought up that point that nobody would really who committed a murder would brag about it unless they didn't commit the murder. So either way that goes to show that Orlando Anderson may not be the murderer that people think he is. And I think it was a very good point made when he also said that that's an easy cover up to blame a dead man. Orlando Anderson's family know this. It's real easy for Las Vegas Metro and Los Angeles Police Department to not solve this case if all the signs and media and press and stuff that they're putting out there is pointing to a dead guy. It is the easy way out, and Orlando's brother summed that up better than I am doing just now on the A&E special. So for that part, I do like it. To sit here and think or say that they didn't kind of take RJ's idea with the patents and apply it to Orlando Anderson, would be laughable. I mean, I can't avoid that elephant in the room because it's apparent where they got the idea from. The only gripe that I have with it, which is a huge gripe with it, mind you, is that they hired an actress to do it. And in the video that I'm going to show you guys with Susan Constantine, she's going to clear this up, like I said, better than I can. So let me check out some of the comments real quick. We're going to get into the videos, and then we'll get RJ on here because he's got a lot to say. And part 2 of this is going to be about Tim Brennan. The Tim Brennan angle is pretty deep because the lady with the afro on the A&E show, Lolita Files, she is pretty close to a certain narrative. And I'm not going to let that cat out of the bag just yet, but I'm sure some of you know who Lolita Files is and what agenda she would push. So without any further ado, I'm going to get into Susan Constantine as soon as I check out some of these comments real quick. SMS, it's good to see you on here, big homie. It's been a long time. Bombfirst.com, I believe, is where I first started talking to you, man. It's good to see you on here. Thanks for tuning in. What's up, Daphne? Is RJ in the chat, guys? I didn't notice just yet. But hey, Katie, Supreme, JM, Kazi, Jeff, good to see you guys back on the show. Like I said, we are going to get into this and hold those questions because we're going to be doing live Q&A with RJ Bond here in just a few minutes. But we are going to play Susan Constantine's response to A&E's Orlando Anderson language expert on their Who Killed Tupac special.
Hi, my name is Susan Constantine, and I am a body language expert and leadership coach.
Okay, everyone get a really good look at your partner next to you, because I'm going to tell you if that person's going to lie to you.
Body language expert specializing in human behavior and facial recognition, Susan Constantine.
Well, my general conclusion is when I looked at both the photographs, there was a high level of similarity.
I've had over 1,000 national appearances on television. I'm asked every day almost to be on some show or to be quoted in a magazine. And the reason why they do that is because out of all of the experts out there, I give them content, good content every single time that's consistent, reliable, and accurate.
In this case, what I felt like when I was watching it is that it was just, shooting bullets. Okay, oops, that person now, right when they said this, that person did that. Oops, now this is when he did this, that's an indicator of lying. Oops, when he did this, that's an indicator of lying. To me, it's actually embarrassing, Richard, to see that happening, and I've seen this before, is that people that are even psychologists. Now, I have a master's in psychology as well. But just because you have a degree in psychology does not mean that you learn how to detect deception. That's a completely different skill that takes intensive training and investigative, interrogative interviewing. It takes a person that has worked within the criminal industry to be able to see how criminals or individuals, how they lie. Mm-hmm. And, you need to have that sort of baseline yourself. Not just, you read a book or you went to school and you learned a little bit about communication. It's preposterous to me. This particular evaluator's expertise, from what I understand, was in coupled in dealing with people that have issues with depression.
Most clients come to me because they're suffering from a little bit of depression. So something in their lives isn't working out and they're hoping to change it.
Okay. Far-reaching into the understanding the criminal mind. That's a whole different realm. It's like saying, just because I'm a surgeon, that I could perform heart surgery and brain surgery just because I have the name surgeon. They are completely opposite, polar opposites of one another, and detecting deception in itself is a specialized field.
Sarah Michael Novia is a behavioral expert who has studied this video, and she's going to tell us whether Orlando Anderson was being honest.
You know, when I've testified in court, I've even testified, Your Honor, you know, I have a psychology degree, although my degree has nothing to do with my training in to be able to read and interpret body language and detecting deception. It is a specialized skill. You need to spend at least 1,000 hours in that specific training, and also using it in the field, and then testing your own hypothesis and your skill level to increase your level of accuracy in detecting deception. So with that being said, you know, investigative, interrogative interviewing, cognitive interviewing, investigative, as an investigative interviewing and working with suspects and witnesses and multiple different types of criminal cases. You know, I was trained by the Institute of Analytic Interviewing, trained by the leaders globally in detecting deception.
What does it mean when a person repeats the question?
That person is generally trying to think of what the answer is supposed to be. Just his name, and he's already getting a little bit anxious.
Orlando, tell me, Tupac's mother filed a lawsuit Friday.
You know, one of the things I think that concerns me a little bit about this, not only just the brevity of the clips from the interview itself, but you've got to understand, I mean, this guy was sitting there. This is a guy who has already been accused of murder. He's already been picked up. He's already been arrested.
Yes, you know, it's, first of all, in order to detect whether something's being truthful or not, you also have to take into account the environment. Would a person feel anxious or nervous being in an environment where they're being interviewed for something at high stakes, especially a murder case where the person is that's being questioned is a subject or a person of interest?
Does he appear to know more than what he's telling here?
Oh, so much more.
And that really concerned me, because one of the things that were pointed out was that the subject averted their eyes.
And he couldn't maintain that eye
He
contact?
would not maintain the eye contact.
So that suggests mistruths as well, because generally when someone is telling the truth, it's pretty easy to maintain eye contact.
Based on evaluating truthfulness and detecting deception by Dr. Matt Tomolo out of San Francisco State University, he wrote an article that came out that was trained in the U.S. Department of Justice through the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and it really debunked a lot of the things that she mentioned, and it was shocking to me. In research, we found that there's 22 out of 23 peer-reviewed research articles that have debunked that theory, that averting eyes is not a signal or a sign of deception. Rather, locking eyes on a person when they're being interviewed is more a deceptor or an indicator of deception, not averting eyes or looking up or looking down. That's processing. So there were several instances where the evaluator was making these assumptions based on single clues, smirking or smiling.
Okay, so right about here is where the sly smiling starts.
The number one emotion that a deceptive person, we found in research, shows is fear, not joy or smirking. Smirking is smugness, but I would be looking more for fear responses. So
he could have been smiling. For all we know, he could have been smiling because he was just, I can't believe I'm actually sitting here talking about this. That's
exactly. People, and when they're in stressful situations, like if they're going to a funeral or something that's not funny, and they're in a stressful situation, people mask that with smiles.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So that is some people do that. So that's actually there's a term for it. It's called Othello error. It's where a person will give you deceptive indicators being truth, and they're 100% truthful. So it's really important for anyone, and really good investigators know that they have to consider the environment is stressful, and then also with you interviewing someone is going to create more anxiety, that I would be looking for a person that was overly calm
Right.
in those situations.
Right.
So the evaluator was making these assumptions based on single clues, smirking or smiling, averting eyes, licking their lips or swallowing.
Did you see that? The hard swallow is very indicative of some kind of guilty behavior.
Those are single gestures or
Sure.
single indicators. And
Sure.
in order to detect deception based on the research, scientific research, you must have them happen in clusters. So to point out the fact that a person stopped and repeated the question, that's called repeated assertion, that's buying time.
So that's the first example of him sort of repeating the question. That person is generally trying to think of what the answer is supposed to be. Just his name, and he's already getting a little bit anxious.
But that's not an indicator of deception. It just means that they're buying time. We don't know why they're buying time. So that means nothing without other clues. So you have to tie in what a person says and look for a minimum of 2 to 3 different indicators that cluster together within a 5-second period of when a question or a stimulus question is delivered. For example, did you kill Tupac? Then you would see a deceptive person may lick their lips, lock eyes, stammer and stutter, or repeat the question. That's a cluster. Those are 3 and 4 different indicators, which gives you a higher level of validity that the person might be being deceptive. I did not see that in this interview.
Now, for example, by contrast, when we look at the Patton interview and we notice when Danny Patton would answer the question and, he would tap his finger, we saw that repeated gesture over and over again. And in fact, we baselined when he would tell the truth so that we could show people the difference between when you're telling the truth that you don't have that physical reaction, that leakage, versus when you have a person who is lying and then we see the leakage. We showed the baseline here, and one of the things that amazed me was that they took absolutely no time to develop a baseline with Orlando Anderson, and with 6 hours, you would think they would.
Exactly. And so, I can only speak to what research states. So everything that I do is based on research. So it's not just subjective opinion, it's objective, and it's founded by strong data that's proven to be true or untrue, okay? So speaking to what you're talking about, and that's part of in order to analyze whether someone's being deceptive or not, is you have to find a particular person's pattern.
And I don't know if you agree with this or not, but it struck me that they tried to make the picture fit the frame. They wanted to paint Orlando Anderson as a liar. And for the record, I want to get your agreement on this too. That when we asked you to analyze the Pattons, we did not ask you to endorse any particular point of view. I think it's safe to say that I came to you with it. I said, just tell me what you think. And there was no agenda in this, and I really want to put that out there because that's your and my integrity on the line. That I didn't come to you with, hey, we need to prove that these guys were liars. Hey, we needed to come with an agenda. With that it was clearly it was a gamble. I mean, honestly, I didn't know what you were going to say. I didn't know if you were going to come back with, hey, you know what, they're telling the truth, because I just wanted to know, it's worth it to stop investigating something if they're telling the truth. If they're innocent, why are we going to keep shaking them down? That's really the important thing here, and that's what I felt was missing in the the setup. This is an interview that's never been done before. Well, let's hear the interview, and then let's get the lady's opinion on it, rather than just here's the interview with a liar. Let's show why he's lying. That's.
And if you remember too, Richard, when those videos came over to me, I went through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I went through it second by second, frame by frame. I also used the jury lab emotion response technology.
Right.
And I use that as well to be able to have the artificial intelligence technology pick up on emotional responses of both the subjects, so that we could tie it into their context. So the way I approach this, and this is what I discussed with you, is that I wanted the objective and the subjective. So when you're dealing with just subjective opinion, there's always going to be room for bias. And I think that's really what we're looking at, is that, okay, would a so-called expert be unbiased and give you their truthful analysis based on their own subjectivity of what they're watching? So, there's a lot of room for human error there. And unless you really know what you're looking for, you're going to make errors. And that's why we use a combination of both.
Well, do you think, Ben Crump, he's been a civil litigator for, years and years and years and years. He's been involved with massive jury selections. Wouldn't you suggest that he would know the difference? Does that say anything about, about his knowledge? I would think he would know the difference, wouldn't you?
Well, you know what? I have to disagree with that, Richard.
Okay.
And the reason why I disagree with that is because I find that attorneys, judges, in fact, the research backs it up, that are at 50% at best of flipping a coin and detecting the credibility or truthfulness of another person. And as you know, my courses have been certified in over 35 states in the U.S. I've trained, my number one clients of mine are attorneys. So I train attorneys, mediators, federal court judges, and our Department of Defense how to detect deception. Why? Because they're not all that good at it. It's a 50% at best, a flipping of a coin to detecting deception. It is a specialized skill. So even though he was a very skilled attorney, very successful attorney, it does not mean that he has a high ability to detecting whether you're being duped or not.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, we'll cut Ben a break on that one then. Sounds to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I think the safe statement to make here in kind of summing up and of course, correct me again if I misstate, but I think that what we've resolved here is that, well, let me put it to you this way as a question rather than just making a statement. Do you think it would be fair to say that A&E should have done a little bit better if they were serious about doing this investigation in getting somebody who would have had the qualifications to do a good analysis on this tape?
Yes, I think there's a handful of people that are very well known, extremely skilled, that have been used in investigative interviewing, detecting deception in high-profile cases that are very skilled. I happen to be one of them. There's about a handful of us that specialize in this, and absolutely A&E should have done their homework, and I'm shocked and amazed that they did not. It's equally as disturbing because I, hold a high level of integrity about my work, and I know others like myself do. And when I see this happening, it absolutely infuriates me that we have people out there used as experts when they are not experts at all in the field, and they're out there, in these high-profile cases, and what they say matters, and it can damage people's lives. And so you better know what you're talking about before you go on national TV and start talking about it, and have the expertise to back it up. Otherwise, you could run into a lot of trouble.
Absolutely. Well, Susie, yet again, thank you so much for everything, and I'm going to stop our tape right here. Hang on a quick second.
So there it is. Before I get RJ on here, I wanted to say that is the opinion of the most renowned behavioral analyst in the country, if not the world, Susan Constantine. And she pointed out to you guys, as a refresher for those who didn't watch the video, she pointed out that the behavior analysis, the person doing it did not set a baseline for the truth. So if there's no baseline for the truth, then you can't tell what the lies are. And also props to RJ for getting that. I'm going to get him on here in just a minute. But with that being said, you know, which way do you want it? Was Orlando a cold-blooded killer? Well, does a cold-blooded, street code abiding gangbanger killer go on television and give interviews and proclaim his innocence? Because it doesn't exactly fit that double narrative that everybody wants to have when it comes to Orlando Anderson. And I find it very strange indeed, or very convenient, that Lolita Files, who co-authored Tim Brennan's book, is the one interviewing Tim Brennan and going off their theory, which, if you think about it, their theory is nothing but a conspiracy theory. It simply is. I mean, by textbook definition, look, Tim Brennan himself said for almost 25 years, all right, that they've had the gun and the ballistics, and the LAPD has been covering this up. Well, I want you to look at the definition of a conspiracy theory here. If you had the case of your life, are you going to just let it go? And where are the documents? If you have the ATF test a gun that matches Orlando Anderson's, or the gun involved in the biggest unsolved murder of the last 50 years, you're not going to document that? So I just wanted everybody to think about that. Now, RJ can say this a lot better than me, and he will be on the show very shortly. So I want to thank you guys for checking out the first segment. We got another segment with Tim Brennan. With Tim Brennan, and that'll be on after we get on it here with RJ. So just bear with us, folks, and I'll have RJ on here in just a second. We'll get this show on the road. I've been reading your comments. Shout out to Reverend Wright. And reading the super chat, am not going to show you any part of my body, but thanks for the $2. I'll buy RJ a beer next time we're in Vegas. Welcome to the show, Mr. RJ Bond.
Hey, what's happening?
It's good to see you. Make sure you're muting me. A lot of people on here, a lot of people checking out the clips. So what's your rundown of Susan Constantine's take on what's going on here with the Orlando Anderson body language?
Well, we had to get her involved, right? I mean, you think we're just going to let this pass? I mean, I was getting calls. My phone was blowing up the minute that A&E documentary came out. A little background about that, too, because a lot of people are having some misconceptions about it. A&E interviewed me, and my interview is going to be on. In fact, I was in the first show. They did a little clip of me in there. I was the bald guy, so you know who I was. I was, part of the show for a while. They just asked me to keep my involvement with the show quiet because there was some people that they really wanted to interview that weren't going to interview if they knew that I was involved with the show. So they just kind of kept that hush and kind of kept everything on the DL. And of course, now it's no secret, and I'm in the credits for the show, special thanks to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I'm involved with the show, but, I got to be honest with you, it's given me a lot of pause, Jesse, because, I watched the first show. I didn't get a chance to watch it when it first came on, but people were blowing up my phone. And so I watched the show, and, I was prepared. They had called me and told me that I wasn't going to be thrilled or impressed by their behavioral analyst. But when I saw what that was, I mean, that was just a travesty. And, makes you got to say, how serious are they about doing this investigation? I mean, really? If this is any indication of how serious they are about wanting to solve this with all of his Ben Crump spiel about, I really want to solve this. I mean, I went to dinner with Ben Crump. He and I went to dinner right after I did my interview. About a week later, we got together and had dinner. And when we had dinner, it seemed to me at the time that I was very impressed with that. He really seemed like he wanted to solve this case. And, of course, it's not his fault when they tell him that somebody's a behavioral expert and they're not. But I saw that and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I mean, how serious are you in an investigation when you've got all the money that A&E has got and you can't better who we have, or at least somebody in that whole level of playing. You got to bring some gal that's a wannabe actress that's been in again, couples therapy, who's got a background in couples counseling, to do something that is this important. I mean, this is not tiddlywinks here. This is a murder investigation. A&E was trying to say that they were serious about it. I mean, how serious can they, can they be? I mean, this is what they trot out. So it was an indication. And of course, knowing what I know about Susie and about how she deals with these things and what she thinks about her whole line of employment, what she does, and the reputation that these people have, there's all this kind of bullshit people out here that are wannabe behavioral analysis people, and they make a bad name for them. So I got Susie on the phone, and she, watched the video, and of course you heard her reaction. She thought what I thought. It's a bunch of bullshit. And it's sad to me that that they actually trotted her out. And, from the beginning, all it sounds to me like is they wanted to make Orlando Anderson the bad guy. And they told her make him the bad guy. And she starts coming up with all this unfounded bullshit. It didn't even make a blip on the radar. I mean, you normally when a show comes out, there's all these reviews about it. There's all these people commenting on the internet about it. That show dropped, and the next day there was maybe 2 articles on the entire internet. I mean, Battle for Compton did volumes more, talk and hype and websites and reviews. And I mean, there's more reviews of Battle for Compton than there is on the A&E show, and that's sad because they probably spent 10 times, 15 times what we spent on Battle for Compton. So, bottom line is that it was just, I'm concerned about the direction that they're going with the show. So ultimately we got that.
Well, it's pretty bold to say because I filmed for it as well. I mean, do you fear that like coming out vocally they're going to cut you from the show or something?
No, I don't think they're going to cut me from the show. I think they're going to present what we have to say. I think they're going to present it in the best light that they can, and then they'll proceed to piss all over it because that's what their show is going to do. I mean, how can you run a legitimate investigation when Lolita Files, who is the co-investigator, she's the one that's in on the investigation. She's supposed to be unbiased. She's supposed to be looking at the facts. The first thing they trot out is Tim Brennan and Bobby Ladd, who she wrote a book with. Now, how many books are you going to sell if Orlando Anderson isn't the guy and Tim Brennan and Bobby Ladd come off looking like a couple of bozos? I mean, really, that's what this is all about. I mean, she sure knew her subject matter and was really steering that narrative and had Bobby Ladd and Tim Brennan on there to give their little dog and pony show like they always do. They kind of remind me of that Disney Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln, where they just does the same thing all the time, like the robot.
So Lolita Files definitely has a dog in this fight. I mean, she stands to gain financially if this show does well because it's pushing her narrative.
I mean, yeah, and I mean, the people could say the same thing about me. They could say, well, R.J. Bond, he wrote a book and he gains if they, push his narrative, then he gains. But see, it's not my show. I didn't get out there and say, I'm going to do this investigation. I'm going to investigate things that haven't happened in 20 years. I didn't do that shit. We said, here's our narrative. If you like it, buy it. If you don't, go pound sand. We didn't, make a pitch to the network that we were going to be fair and unbiased and that we're going to examine all these things and come up with a conclusion. I mean, what kind of conclusion are they going to come up with other than the Orlando Anderson thing? And and gear the narrative in that direction, where they'll give all the other ones a fair shake because they'll say, well, we treated them all fairly and we gave them all equal time and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, yeah, Captain Obvious, Supreme, that's about right. Yeah, this is how it's going to go. It's going to go the Orlando Anderson route because at the end of the day, if it doesn't go the Orlando Anderson route, then one of the people on the investigative team stands to lose money. And I don't think anybody's in it for that. So that's really what it comes down to. Hello, Hi says, who really killed Tupac? I'm tired of all this back-to-back bullshit. Who really killed him? Well, we've been saying it. Go watch Battle for Compton. We've been saying it. Sorry if you're not keeping up with the times. But that's what it comes down to. So that's what we have on that.
I'm sorry. I had a question for you. Now, when it comes to Tim Brennan, we have a little piece on Tim Brennan, but I wanted to ask you, we were talking earlier and you brought up a conspiracy theory. You brought up we're throwing conspiracy theory around, but nobody ever attaches it to Tim. Would you care to elaborate for the folks listening?
All right. Well, okay. Everybody knows that, and we're going to see a little bit about it. We're going to see a section in Battle for Compton. We're talking about Tim Brennan and the whole Orlando Anderson thing, and how he invented the whole Orlando Anderson did it, and really came up with the whole thing. He kind of authored it all. Okay. That's Tim Brennan, the guy that's got his back to it. And I like his, 1970s mirrored sunglasses that he wears to hide his bloodshot eyes, probably. The guy's either he's been out in the sun for 15 years or he's, an alcoholic or something, because I've never seen a guy more red than I have. Maybe he just sunburned, I shouldn't make any conclusions about anything, but it's my opinion and I'll speak it. Bobby Ladd the same way, got the mirror glasses. The thing about a mirror glasses in an interview is that they can't see where your eyes are and they can't see where you're looking when you actually do the interview. So you don't know what they're really thinking or what they're really doing. It's just a way to obscure their facial expressions. So at the end of the day, he invented the whole Orlando Anderson thing, and he's been trying to push this narrative for 20 years now. And ultimately, he goes on there and he does his spiel, but he comes back later on and in his book, and if you want to throw the portion of his book up there, Jess, in his book, Once Upon a Time in Compton, which Lolita Files wrote with him, he goes up there and he says that he had the murder weapon that he actually found in a box of 2,000 guns, or however magically he found it. He found the murder weapon. Now he goes and he finds the murder weapon, he turns it into ballistics, and he comes back and says, and he said it on the show, that there was a match, that they found a match to the murder weapon. Okay, now that was in 2010. So let me ask you a question, and I really want to put this out there. If you're the guy who found the murder weapon that could, number one, prove your entire 15-year theory that you've been working your ass off to try to sell for 15 years, and you find the weapon that does it, and then you claim that the LAPD, the LA County Sheriffs, the FBI, the ATF, and Greg Kading all conspired to change that positive ballistics match to a negative ballistics match. It didn't match, and suddenly make that gun go away. And 7 years later, you come back and you say something about it. Where the f were you 10 years or 7 years earlier when it happened? You look at a guy like Russ Poole. That's a cop. Russ Poole thought that the LAPD was doing some slick shit to him when he went in there. What did he do? He quit the police department. He went public and sued the LAPD. Tim Brennan claims to have found the gun that was a ballistics match to the murder of Tupac Shakur, one of the greatest unsolved murders in the last 20 years. And what does he do? Nothing. He lets them say it's not the weapon and he shuts his mouth. Well, that means one of two things. That means either the whole story he's making up is a bunch of bullshit to begin with, or what else has he been keeping his mouth shut for the past 15, 20 years about? Because don't forget, I'm the one holding the Compton corruption report, which talks about drugs, narcotics, and guns leaving the Compton evidence lockers and making its way out onto the streets. You're part of that Compton Police Department. I wonder what other shit's been going down that you've been keeping quiet about for all those years. Because if you're willing to take a murder weapon you say was a ballistics match that could prove and solve one of the biggest cases in the last 20, 30 years, a murder that you've been trying to push for the last 15 years, Mr. Brennan, you've been trying to push it, you find the gun, and not only do you not go public about it, you don't say shit about it for 7 years. And then you put it in a book and you put it out in public and you expect that everybody's going to believe that now? Please.
Where's the
evidence? That is my opinion.
Where is the evidence?
Yeah, where's the ballistics report? If you got a report back from anybody saying there was a positive match, I mean, man, when I make a $20 payment to Taco Bell, I get a receipt. Okay, when I go and I pay my bills online, I print a receipt. If I've been pushing for 15 years that I got a murder weapon and I get back a ballistics report that says that there's a match, even if somebody calls me on the telephone and says that there's a ballistics match for something, I'm going to get a receipt. Okay, now I don't know. Hey, no, I ain't gonna just have a vein explode, Mr. Jizz. I'm not going to do that. I'm very passionate about what I believe.
Mr.
But I'm going to tell you, yeah, but I'm going to tell you, you're a mean one, Mr. Jizz. All right, I would think that if you're going to have that, you're going to have some information, some evidence, a report. And even if you're talking to the dude on the phone, let's say some dude called him up on the phone and said, hey, man, I'm with the lab at the FBI, super secret lab, and I got this ballistics match for you, and it matched that gun match. It's a Tupac gun. If he told me that on the phone, I would say, fax me whatever you can right now, because I'm a detective. I collect evidence. That's what a detective does. They collect evidence. But this cat, oh, really? You got the okay, thanks. And then he waits around and somebody later on says that. Now, and this is what I've been hearing from this clown for the last 20 years. I could have been a contender. I could have been a contender. This dude's like, I could have solved the crime. If they'd have just let us do our job, I could have solved the crime. We could have solved the crime. We could have. Dude, why aren't you solving the crime? If you got the murder weapon and you had it and then you don't have it anymore, ain't that like a fumble? Ain't that like if you were playing football, you don't fumble the ball? Okay?
He could have just took the serial number of the weapon.
Dude, in football, if you have control of the ball and you lose control of that ball and that ball bounces someplace else and either nobody picks it up or somebody else picks it up and runs with it, that's called a fumble. That's what you do. You fumble the damn ball, okay? So, bottom line, dude, why does anybody take this clown seriously? Why, either one of them? Why did they take him seriously? First off, in my opinion, and I will express that under my First Amendment right, there are a couple of failures. Bottom line was you tried to trot out a theory 20 years ago you haven't been able to make stick no matter how hard you tried. And I better be damn sure that you know you were trying. You're not just going to put that theory out there and not try and just walk away from it and say, geez, I really wish I could have done something about it, but I couldn't. All I hear from this guy is, oh, the sheriff's department kept me down, and oh, I couldn't investigate in Compton anymore because of the Compton corruption report. And, oh, it was Omar Bradley's fault. Oh, it was this person's fault. Oh, it was that person's fault. Bottom line here, Tim Brennan, is that you went public. Jesse, you got that excerpt from his book where he talked about we're going public, where he put it all out there. This guy wanted to see the Compton PD and Omar Bradley go down. So what does he do? He starts organizing protests. He starts showing up at city council meetings. He files a federal lawsuit. And then when that gets thrown out because it's a bunch of bull anyway, he appeals it and he puts it out again. This guy's no stranger to making trouble publicly, and he's not a stranger to getting out there in public and stirring some shit up if he really believes the shit that he's doing. And of course, his job was on the lines in Compton Police Department, whatever benefit he got from working on the Compton Police Department, he wanted that police department back. So when he goes out there and he's making it and he's stirring up all this shit, bottom line, he's no stranger to making waves and going public about it if he doesn't like it. So the question becomes, if you know how to do that, you already know how to get out there in public. You already know how to make it happen. You already know how to raise a protest. How come you stayed quiet for 7 years? Why did you stay quiet for 7 years? And then turn around and try to blame Greg Kading about it, trying to blame the LA Sheriff's Report, trying to blame the LAPD, trying to blame, you blame Vegas, you blame LAPD, you blame everybody but yourself. Okay, that's the bottom line. If you really had that murder weapon, you can't come back 7 years later, get quiet about it, and then allege a big conspiracy that kept you from getting to the truth. That's what losers do, okay? Losers make excuses. Losers blame other people because they couldn't get it done. Okay, bottom line, we don't make excuses here. We bring evidence, we collect evidence, we get it out there. Lecture over.
No, and I agree with those points. I was trying to pull up the segment from his book, and my computer wanted to act silly. It's, for those who don't know who Tim Brennan is the one who wrote the affidavit that gave search to the houses in Compton, including Orlando Anderson's. And there's an interesting connection there between search warrants in Compton and who was getting them in advance. For those that don't know out there, RJ, who was getting tipped off and demanded to be tipped off every time a search warrant was served in the city of Compton?
Oh, that was Reggie Wright Sr. That came back in the Compton corruption report, that the officers, and these weren't just people, these were officers, other cops, were telling the investigators that every time there was a search warrant that was going to be served on a location, Reggie Wright Sr. wanted to know where it was ahead of time. Now, I wonder why that is. Okay. Why? He just wanted to be in the know so he could know the day before? I don't think so. So, you got to remember, Tim Brennan and Bobby Ladd are Reggie Wright Sr.'s proteges. They worked for Reggie Wright Sr. And they said nothing but amazing things on their website about how great Reggie Wright Sr. was and what a boon to the community he is, and on and on and on. So at the end of the day, you got to consider the source. I mean, in the entire Compton Police Department of 100 and something officers, with one of the worst gang problems in history, how many gang officers did they have? 3. Okay, they had 3 gang cops. That was how important it was for them that the gangs were such a menace. Because why would you want to make war with the people that are doing your dirty work for you? Okay, that was why. There was a symbiotic relationship going on between the gangs and the cops. The cops are putting the drugs out on the street. They're putting guns out on the street. And who were the consumers? The gangs. So you put the two and two together, okay? I mean, I didn't make that up. That came out in the Compton evidence locker, missing drugs from the Compton evidence locker, okay? And I'm not saying Tim Brennan ran drugs. I'm not saying Bobby Ladd ran drugs. I'm not saying that they did anything wrong or corrupt as a result of that, nor am I saying the Compton Police Department corruption report says that they did anything wrong. All I'm saying is they're lazy because after 15 years and 20 years of not being able to solve a crime, suddenly they want people to take what they have to say seriously, and they could have solved it. Well, you know what? We don't make excuses for why we're second place. That's first place goes out and fucks the homecoming queen. Second place sits there and makes excuses as to why they don't.
I love that quote. Before we get into the Tim Brennan piece, is there any chance that Susan Constantine is going to do her own version of the body language results on Orlando Anderson? And would that even be a possibility?
Well, what do you think? I mean, at the end of the day, Susan Constantine, I'm just blessed to have her. She's an asset. She's a good ally. She's not going to lie on account of me. She's got a reputation that goes way beyond me. She's been on 1,000 television shows, literally 1,000 television shows. She's not going to lie just to make RJ Vaughn happy, and she's certainly not going to carry my water in terms of what she thinks of an interview. So do you think that I'm going to have her look at the Orlando Anderson tapes? If we get those tapes, hell yes. We're going to have her come on the show, and we're going to have her do her review of that. In fact, if we're really lucky, maybe we can get her to do it live. Maybe we can get her to do the Skype interview and do it live where she can tell us about what she found and why. But absolutely.
That'd be fantastic. Well, to let the cat out of the bag, this channel was promised those tapes once this series had completed its run. So hopefully we will get a chance to do that, and I'd chip in to see those results.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's let everybody remember a refresher about Tim Brennan and
undercover for the FBI and ATF during my tenure with Death Row Records and Right Way Protective Services.
There was a report that was written by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department about the altercation with Kevin Hackey. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department wasn't concerned about anybody's safety, but they were more concerned about the public relations of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and strangely, the public relations of the Compton Police Department. Now, since Compton wasn't going to be involved in the case for several days later, why would the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department be so concerned about the public relations of the Compton Police Department if they weren't there yet?
A CEO of a company or the wife of somebody being murdered is one kind of investigation, but now you're talking about something where there was all kinds of alleged baggage involved.
This is where you begin to see Compton Police Department inject themselves into the middle of the Las Vegas investigation under the false pretense that it's a gang activity.
And again, that first night, I don't think he was totally forthcoming on everything he knew.
So they approached Frank Alexander to basically lie to the Vegas Police Department and tell them that a chain was actually snatched the day of the shooting, September 6th, earlier that morning. And that was the story that was concocted then. It happened that day. Nothing about the Lakewood Mall and nothing about anything happening months earlier. It was all happening that day. And that's what they told Frank Alexander to tell the cops, and that's what Frank Alexander told the cops.
Every time I think it's over, they drag me right back in again.
And later on, when Frank Alexander is asked to repeat that story again, he refuses.
We were supposed to went down to Vegas, me, you, and Malcolm, because Malcolm can ID the person. We were supposed to send you and him down to ID, to see if look at the pictures, because they had a suspect, and that's when they had Orlando as a suspect, and then they were going to just have y'all look at the pictures before then just to see if maybe that, made your memory get better or whatever. So you can describe somebody, but once you see a picture, oh yeah, that's him. And so that's what they were going to have you to do. And that's what David told them, that we got two witnesses that's, maybe can help you out and put some things in the light. And plus the statement that you gave about the chain and all of that, with the additional information.
And when he refuses, the story begins to evolve a little bit. It doesn't become that the chain was snatched that day. It becomes that the chain was snatched several months earlier.
His head of security is a ex-Compton police officer. It's suspected that you have Compton gang members who came up there to do a shooting, gangland-style shooting, and yet and still, who's heading up the investigation? You have a lieutenant from Compton Police. This whole thing, it smells from high hell.
Hundreds of hours of investigation was spent on the narrative that said that this guy murdered this other person. That narrative came from the powers to be.
There's a Compton police officer by the name of Tim Brennan who is a protege of Reggie Wright Sr. Well, Tim Brennan is the first one that comes up in this investigation with the entire concept that a gang was involved and that Orlando Anderson was actually the shooter. Tim Brennan and Bobby Ladd run around talking about what great guys Reggie Wright Sr. and Horry Taylor were. And of course, this is the same Reggie Wright Sr. that the Compton Police Department says is in charge of both the gangs and the drugs, and drugs are disappearing from the evidence locker. And the same Horry Taylor, that's the one that has 2 keys of cocaine fall out of his locker when they investigate him after being suspended.
You know, so obviously from a law enforcement agency looking into this, I mean, all of a sudden there's war in Compton. I mean, you know, basic calls are made, you know. So, quote unquote, you know, alleged Crip members, whatever, were killed left and right. But from Las Vegas standpoint, I mean, the whole thing smells.
Tim Brennan lays the entire Orlando Anderson theory smack down in the middle of the investigation and uses a couple of confidential informants, and we have no idea of their reliability.
Oh, yeah. People, you know, embellish in search warrants to get it, you know, so they can get it. It's not, you know, in my experience, it wasn't something that was widely done, but there were times that you'd hear about it was done.
But seriously, what are they going to do? They're going to try to blame somebody else. And who are they going to blame in a hurry? They're going to blame somebody that they can't point the finger on, somebody that can't be named individually. They're going to name some entity. They're going to name some group, some people, some gang. But at the end of the day, they're going to lie.
And they had to get a search warrant, and they couldn't come up with, you know, the probable cause for it. So sometimes it was embellished or, yeah, made up.
That's what Tim Brennan told me personally. He said, whenever they're ready, tell them that when they're ready to know who did it, who was in the car, and all that stuff, tell them we have the evidence, we know who did it, we know exactly who was in that car that night. And he's basically saying, and I don't want to start dissension between 2 different departments, but he said
it's funny because everything we had came from Tim Brennan.
You can't always take what they say 100% true, because you always have to look at a motive for somebody of why are they saying why are they telling me what they're telling me? Do they have a motive?
You have to understand the absurdity of this. The entire narrative being manufactured is for a reason. You have to solicit a response from the judge. You have to get the judge to believe the story.
Is there some reason why they're doing this? Because, I mean, it may be something other than the truth.
If they had told the judge, hey, there's just some random arm that came out of a car, we really don't know who it is, and we really don't know who was responsible for it, and it may or may not have been related to a chain snatch earlier that day or 2 months earlier, and we're really not sure of that, there's not a very good likelihood that that judge is going to sign that search warrant.
They don't like him, or they don't like the individual, or they got something against the individual, or somebody told them, I need you to pin this guy.
And no witness to the Tupac Shakur fight at the MGM said anything about Tupac saying anything, especially the line, "Are you from the South?"
Cops do it all the time.
That was intentionally added to the search warrant to give it a flavor of contradiction and to identify the South with the Southside Crips. And this was to make it appear gang motivated.
When a judge signs a search warrant, that judge is absolutely relying upon the representations made in the affidavit, and the affidavit has to be under oath.
It's important to understand that this kind of a false narrative emphasizes the fact that there was a fight and it made it Tupac versus the Southside Crips. So it set up the big fight.
The judge is relying upon the veracity and truthfulness of that police officer.
The statements made by Tim Brennan were not simply academic. They were actually made for an intended purpose and for a reason that judge would have to buy later.
And there are times, and I was a judge myself, where you get the call at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning from the drug enforcement officers that they want to come to your house and they have you sign a search warrant.
It's like when we served the search warrant on my undercover operation, the affidavit was this thick.
The affidavit says that somebody got out of the car and started talking shit. Well, that didn't happen. No witness ever said that happened. And if you really go back to think about the amount of work that would have involved, it asks a whole lot more questions.
And you got to make darn sure as a judge that you're attentive, you're attuned to what they're doing, and you have some clarity.
Well, if all your facts are based upon the opinion or assumptions of other individuals and you have no confirmation of that by other witnesses, then you're going to go back and you're going to put your affidavit together and you say, I am swearing to these truths that were given to me. And these truths may not be truths. They're only opinions and assumptions.
For example, if someone got out of the passenger side of a stopped car and walked all the way around the front of that car or around the back of that car, talking shit and holding a gun, that the bodyguards would have reacted to that. But it didn't happen.
So the detective that is getting the information must be able to confirm or to have other evidentiary value to verify them as truths.
In my era, if I was caught lying, it would have been the end of my career. I would have been fired. They wouldn't have whitewashed, they would have fired me.
Each one of the statements made in Tim Brennan's affidavit that were incorrect were not made accidentally. They were made intentionally. And the reason that they were made intentionally was to alter the meaning of the search warrant. They altered the statement. It wasn't, are you from the South? Tupac said nothing like that. But if you alter it and you say, are you from the South? That's not just a simple mistake. That makes it personal, it makes it argumentative, and it makes it actionable.
They can't use you anymore because you've already lied on the record, and therefore you have no credibility anymore, so therefore they can't use you.
And it got to the point where Compton had to do something.
It began before dawn. The crime sweep involved 300 officers, 10 agencies, including the FBI, at more than 37 locations in the Compton, Linwood, and Long Beach areas.
Based on the affidavit and the search warrant of Tim Brennan, they go ahead and they do this big gang sweep.
Of course, during the affidavit, I chased him into a house and we recovered some guns out of that house.
Looking all over Compton for Orlando Anderson. But who finds him? Tim Brennan. So they haul Orlando Anderson in. Vegas police ask him a bunch of questions. And what do the Vegas police do? They walk away.
I just don't see the interest.
And Tim Brennan and the Compton PD can't figure out what the heck's going on. We're giving it to you on a silver platter, and you're just not buying.
I've heard Manning before say that, well, we treat it like every other case, and he doesn't get any special treatment because he is a celebrity, but, you know, I don't know if I buy all that.
There was an arrest made for the murder of Tupac Shakur. It was done by Tim Brennan to Orlando Anderson.
You know, I know the people they need to talk to solve it.
So suddenly the rhetoric starts. Now Las Vegas is incompetent, Brent Becker's incompetent, Kevin Manning's incompetent, everybody's incompetent.
The bullshit that everybody said that we didn't do anything, that's so out in left field, they're ridiculous.
You know, and that's that. I had some problems between Las Vegas and me because they don't, you know, like what I've said. Right. But, you know, I speak the truth.
In the Tim Brennan search warrant, there's mention of several gang members involved, and one of those gang members involved is a gang member by the name of Danny Patton, who also goes by the nickname of White Boy. During the service and the execution of this search warrant, many houses and residences that were involved with these gang members were searched, with the notable exception of one, and that was Danny Patton, aka White Boy. It reminds me of the old statement, don't ask a question you don't already know the answer to.
There are a lot of things that no one else knows about.
The Vegas Police Department knew exactly what was going on. It stunk to high heaven and they didn't want any part of it. On the way out, Orlando Anderson says to Brent Becker, are you going to arrest me? Brent Becker says, arrest you for what?
Do I think we know who did it? Yeah.
And the further and harder that Compton pushed the matter, the further the Vegas police backed away, and the further that they didn't want anything to do with it.
All right, so here's the bottom line. Tim Brennan's the guy who wrote the Orlando Anderson story, the affidavit that the search warrant was based on, and he's the one who brought Orlando Anderson in front of the Vegas cops. The Vegas cops said they didn't want anything to do with him. And ever since that time, Tim Brennan and Bobby Ladd have been running around saying, oh, we could have solved this, oh, we could have solved this. And the bottom line was they've had every opportunity in the world to solve it. They could have gone public about it years ago. They didn't say shit about it. Tim Brennan finds the alleged murder weapon. Well, oh, I forgot. Tim Brennan finds the alleged murder weapon and doesn't say shit about it for 7 years. Please, give me a break. Okay? Then you got the A&E show. So, well, I can hardly wait to see what will happen next week, tomorrow on the A&E show. We'll see. I mean, like I said, I don't think that they're going to necessarily treat our theory badly at first. I think they're going to just say that the other one has more information and has more, more behind it. But again, if you look at the people that are involved with it, you look at what the agendas are, the people that are involved with it, I think the fix is in. And then, of course, that travesty of a behavioral expert. We will get the Orlando Anderson interview, and when we get the Orlando Anderson interview, we will put a real behavioral analyst on there, and we'll definitely go and get the right stuff there, bud.
Right on, and I wanted to apologize to everybody again for the delay in the stream. It is just really windy here, and I want to thank RJ Bond for coming on. And I guess we're going to keep you posted. And did you want to say a thing about the rights? Wasn't there an update on the rights?
Quick update on the Reggie Wright stuff. There's not much going on right now because they have a trial set or another hearing in January. But rumor has it that they are supposed to get all of the discovery from the prosecutors, which means all the evidence that the prosecutors have that they want to put out at trial, which means all the tape transcripts, all the wiretap conversations, transcripts of those, maybe even the tapes themselves. All of those are going to be made available to the defense. So if there's anything to report, you better know that we're going to be on it. We'll be looking for that stuff. We won't always know what the information is, the discovery itself, because discovery is not filed with the court, and all we have is access to what's become court record. But hopefully maybe we can get somebody that can hack it, somebody that can actually get it, drop it off for us and let us know. Yes, it is a Kangol. Thank you very much, SPB 519. Quick shout out, Sandeep Minhas, Hip Hop Musica, Mohammed, Mike. How you doing, buddy? Good. Thank you for coming around. Reese D's. I got to look at it this way. Michael Moore. I missed it. Hold on. Yes, it is. Bunk. Let's see what we got here. Waited 11 years to come forward. No, actually, that's Reese D's. You got to understand that's not true. Michael Moore didn't wait 11 years to come forward and say that he heard the word got him. Michael Moore came out in a security meeting 2 days after the shooting saying that they weren't allowed to carry guns or have radios. And he said it in front of Reggie Wright to Suge Knight because Reggie Wright wasn't going to say anything. He said it to the artist as well. The whole part about the got him part came out in 2002. Frank Alexander had that Michael Moore interview since 2002, which is, by my recollection, 6 years. And he came out about it. But the big difference between Tim Brennan and Michael Moore was that Michael Moore was in fear for his life from somebody taking his life. And he came out, somebody didn't even like Tupac. Tim Brennan has got an agenda in that he wants to solve a crime, and he's a cop. He's apparently not afraid of anybody, I guess. So he would have every reason to do it. So if you've got a case that you're going to solve, it wasn't Michael Moore's job to solve the case. It was Tim Brennan's job to solve the case, and he said that he could solve the case. Well, doesn't sound like it to me. You know what? Hey, Jess, here's what we'll do. For everybody who hasn't seen it, let's just post that part of Battle for Compton. Let's just put it out as a video so that way they can see it. And then you just put it out there and just watch it. So if you want a refresher course just on Tim Brennan, that's what we'll talk about that. So no worries there. So we'll just get it out there as a video.
All right. Until next time, everybody, I appreciate it, RJ. Thank you for coming on.
Take care, buddy.
All right. For those who it's not freezing for, I can't see. I can't tell. And to be honest with you guys, I apologize. I don't know what's going on other than the weather. But I did get some super chats, so I do want to read those, of course. I appreciate that. Jmix the God, RJ, get in. How you fit in? Well, shout out to you, Mace. TN days, right? Thank you for the super chat, man. I appreciate it. Reese Deese, of course. JM Kazi wants me to boost the internet speed. I've got the big boy internet. I don't know what's going on. You know, I seen some comments like, you know, so and so's tapping in, and it kind of felt like it. Computer speed was running fine. My internet speed, I did a quick, while we were glitching out, I did a broadband test to see my upload download speed. It's all bueno. The Skype was saying a red signal, so I don't know if that was RJ or me. But we've got some new software. We're trying to work out the kinks. I appreciate that you guys come on these things. We're going to try to get more back in the schedule. The holidays kind of had us messed up. But back to the super chat. JM Kazi said RJ has a sweet hat. Watch JM Kazi's podcast. Watch his channel. Sub. The guy's on the right track. I don't agree with every single point he makes, but the dude puts out good content. If you like Tupac stuff, go check out JM Kazi's podcast. Subscribe to the guy. He's out there working hard. And May Saul, obviously, thank you again. So when it came to the Susan Constantine thing, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I talked to a couple producers, and I was told about the Orlando Anderson tape, and it was going to be inserted into the A&E broadcast in advance. I've known since August of, I believe, 2016 that was going to happen. I was also told by the same person that as soon as these episodes have aired and they've used it, that because it's that person's, that I could air it here for you guys here. And if that happens, we're going to have Susan Constantine on top of it, of course, and we're going to air it on here unedited and hopefully talk to the person that conducted the interview. I've maintained a pretty good relationship with them, but you never know. I mean, I've taken some pot shots at Edie, and I don't want this live stream to come across as a pot shot because I kind of like the A&E docs, you know, and but it's hard to say that without sounding biased. But I kind of like the direction they're going. I know they're going to spotlight certain people, but I think it's funny, and I want to say this for my true fans out there, or subs, or whatever, just normal people that like Tupac like me. Check this out. You guys see DJ AG's new Greg Kading bit. Okay, two things are going on here. Either Greg Kading never changes his clothes, or they did that interview like a year ago, and he's been holding on to that thing just to throw a title on it. But you know what? Go ahead and check out DJ AG's interview of Greg Kading on this. It's a gem. So go ahead and send him some traffic. But I will say, shout out to Art of Dialogue. Art of Dialogue put out the clip. So if you want the skinny, you don't have A&E, or you just want to see the clip of Orlando Anderson's brother, go to Art of the Dialogue. Subscribe to that guy. If you love Tupac, he brings content left and right. So let me check out some of these comments, guys. I don't know what was going on with RJ, but what I'm gonna do, and it'll take me a few hours because you know how many curse words it is I'm gonna have to bleep. I'll post this live stream edited without the stutters so you guys can get the full effect. I'll throw the Tim Brennan video in there so you guys can get the full effect of what we were trying to convey and he was talking about. RJ's working on a lot of projects right now that have nothing to do with Tupac, so I do want to say, if he's still watching out there, I do appreciate his time, and sorry for technical difficulties. So I'm gonna take a look at some of your guys' questions and comments here, and then tell me what you want to see on the next show. I know that it had been brought up. I think it was JM Kazi, sub to his channel. I think it was that dude that said talk about Eugene Deal. So gonna do some of that in one of these live streams, but like we were trying to do tonight, I want to make it media rich. So we got a lot of cool shit to show you. You know, we can bring in video clips, different interview segments. Maybe I can tease some of the interviews I got going. I've been talking to the right people, and got a bunch in store. And keep your eye out. I think it's being slept on. Dwayne Nettlesby, that interview. Keep your eye on it. It's going to be a big one. All right, so let me take the super chat off here to actually take a look at these comments. So, yep, RJ's still on here. Good to see you, RJ. Like I said, thanks for coming on. Yeezy808 asked me, Jmix, you guys coming on after tomorrow's A&E episode? All I know is I was told that RJ who does appear on episode 1. At the end of episode 1, there's actually a clip of RJ and Mike Carlin. I was told by Paul Watson III, who is director on the series, that I definitely made episode 6, maybe a clip or so in episode 4. Another producer said there will be a promo with me and that person, either after one of the episodes coming up soon or the 4th episode. So yes, I believe I'll be in the thing. I did sit down and do about a 45-minute to an hour interview with them. They did have me repeat a couple things, like they were real interested in the talking points. So I think there's a pretty good chance that my interview will be in there. RJ's interview is going to be in there, of course. Michael Carlin even has a part in there for you Carlin fans out there. And Joe Blow, I agree. I do have the craziest chats. It's one of the reasons I do this thing, just to get us all here. You know, I think at the core, we are all Tupac fans. And if we can sit here and talk about Tupac, you know, have a good time with it, why not? I mean, no other channel I see is really doing that. So why not this one? You know, the V Bulletin forum days are gone, even though there's some cool ones out there. You know, I figured this is a better platform. And did I get paid for the A&E interview? I was not compensated for the A&E interview. I know people were, some people, I was just happy to be asked, to be honest with you. And the producers were really interested in seeing me on there. And it kind of, you know, I'm just a dude. So I was like, yeah, you know, I'll say what I think and what I know. But, you know, that's a good question. By Maysol, who said, what happened to Yasi and Dante? That's a good question. He's probably hanging out with the realist. So let me move to the bottom. Patty, thank you. I'm glad that you liked the Dwayne Nettlesby interview. It's pretty dope. I've got that's not me being cocky, it's just a damn dope interview. The good interviews are where I don't have to say anything. I just ask a question, they talk for an hour. That's the best interview for me. I can just kick back, drink a soda and listen, you know. So it's a great interview on its own merits. Shout out to Dante. You know what? Shout out to Dante. If it wasn't for Dante, we wouldn't have half the stuff that we hear now. Evelglian83, do you know what happened to the guy from Tupac Forum Channel? He hasn't posted anything more than a year. If you mean Lars, the guy that interviews, I'm not real sure, buddy. I enjoyed Lars's interviews. You know, there was some little site beef back in the day, but, you know, I don't think it's any big deal. Thank you, Cat Eyes. I'm glad you like the channel. You know what? I'm glad that people just listen to the interviews. You know, I did it originally as just something that, because I wanted to know the answers to some questions. You know, you got a lot of people that would talk on different message boards. They just have questions. I'm like, why don't we just get on social media? It was fairly new back then. It's 2008. Not everybody had Facebook in their phone back then. I'm like, why don't we get on these social media sites, just ask these dudes these questions? And it went from asking them in private messages just calling them on the phone. Keith Jones wants me to interview Gene Deal. I've talked to Gene a couple times. I don't think he wants to interview with me. I don't know why. Maybe he doesn't like my channel. Maybe he doesn't like what he thinks I stand for. Mike says he loves the Rick Clifford interview and Kendrick Wells. Mike's friend. Appreciate that, Mike. You know what? Rick Clifford was one of those ones that just talked as well. I need to put out another segment with him. YouTube's a tough place to get your videos up and at least get, you know, your 35 cents per play. So yeah, I'm letting the chat go a little bit. DJ Gary, as always, good to see you here. Supreme 2. But interview the realist. I have a guy trying to get me connected to him. He knows the realist. He likes my channel. He feels like I'll give him a good shot. So that's what I'm going to try to. That's what I'm going to try to do, is get the realist on here. I actually like some of his music. So let's recap, guys and ladies. I like the show, and I want to say RJ is down and help make the show too. So just keep in mind that he is very passionate about what he's done. There has been a lot of people like Frank Alexander, Michael Moore, and the late great Russell Poole that was in his life that were passionate about this case that are no longer here. So when you hear RJ talk about Bobby Ladd, Tim Brennan, it's coming from a very personal place. You know, we support A&E and what they're doing. The documentary looks better than any of the other ones, the Fox one, the Oxygen Special, any of that. It's got a nice lack of Greg Kading, which I thoroughly enjoy. And, you know, all thoughts and opinions are of those who say them. But I would like to see where the show goes. I like it better than most, like I said. I'd like to see my segment on there. And but let's go over what we know so far. It looks like Orlando Anderson brother is denying it. It looks like the person that they hired to do the body language was not a body language expert, was not even the 30th best body language expert, and as a matter of fact is an actress. So she didn't set up a baseline for him telling the truth, like saying his name was Orlando Anderson. She actually set that up as a example of him telling a lie, which is kind of strange. Susan Constantine says you have to set up a baseline to prove when someone's telling the truth to show when they're lying, and this clearly wasn't done in this episode. I think they kind of saw RJ's idea, tried to run with it a little bit, but a quick IMDb search shows that this woman was an actress. And hopefully if we do get the footage and the exclusive interview, we will get Susan Constantine to do that, and we'll have some high definition facial recognition software ran on it, so it'll be pretty impressive. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and for those that don't know, we do this usually every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, but the holidays, we wanted to get a live stream in. We tried to do it Sunday, but I just wasn't back yet, so we did it today. This Wednesdays won't be happening, but next week we're going to be on point every week. We're going to bring it to you as much as we got it. Thanks for tuning in. Keep in mind that the lady with the afro, Lolita Files, is the same person that wrote the book with Tim Brennan and Bobby Ladd, who slammed Greg Kading, but say it's Orlando Anderson. She definitely has a dog in this fight, so just keep that in mind. Thank you, DJ Gary, always coming on here, showing love. King Kendrick, Mike, crisis actor, yeah, that's funny. Just be, you know, I will take RJ's flow and run with it. I will monetize his flow for my benefit. I will go to his house and have a nice dinner with his family and then not put my plate in the sink because I know him that well. Just kidding. So for all those, I want to say this real quick, ending it. You know, I get a lot of comments on my videos. I was going to do a video where I read the comments, but, you know, I don't want to be that YouTuber. But I do get comments in my videos that say that, you know, I should let Tupac rest in peace. And I don't think the YouTube videos are preventing that. Tupac wanted to be remembered, and this is how we do it. You know, we check out the shows that they come out with, we analyze them, we talk about Tupac, and that's what we do here on this channel. And I think we're doing exactly what Tupac wanted. So you can let him rest in peace. I hope that he's resting in peace, but I want to find justice for him as well. So thank you everybody for tuning in. I hope to catch you on the next one, which is going to be the next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Promise you, we're gonna be on time, hell or high water. Thank you everybody. Thank you for the super chats. I'll use it to get better internet than a hamster on a wheel turning my little modem. But we'll see it. We'll see you then, guys. I wish I could take more questions. I just gotta go. You guys have a good one. One love, everybody, and we'll see you on the next live stream. Hey all, it's Jmix here, and I want to thank everybody that took the time to watch the video. If you liked it, go ahead and throw it a like, maybe even a comment down below. And if you really like my content, check out my Patreon. The link is down below. For $1 a month, you get all the live streams, unedited as soon as they happen. Plus, interviews in advance, and other bonus content. The link is in the description. If not, you guys could always watch one of the videos to the side of me. See you on the next upload. One love, everybody.